If you just look up on YouTube, KU Community Conversations, it should get you there.
I didn't think I told you this, but it's live streamed. That's 360 camera.
Awesome, yeah.
So everything you say is going to be captured. How you eat is going to be captured. So use the right
good.
fork. You have 3 of them. So
Ooh.
Are they the same size?
no, they're all different. And the bristles are all separate.
It's called KU Community.
The middle fork is the main fork, right?
Yeah,
I think it goes salad, main, dessert. I should know
I'm not
because
judging.
my grandmother taught me.
It's like outside in or inside out.
I don't remember.
I thought it was
Usually you start.
If my grandma sees this, I'm
Inside.
gonna yell at.
Oh, I think started from the left. It's like salad and then main and then dessert.
I thought you wanted to get the fork that was close to your plate away from it, because like there's not enough room. That's
Yeah.
what you
I
can
don't
go
know.
back
I mean, the dessert and salad
what I
forks
thought.
look
Yeah.
about the same.
I'm not
yeah, that's what I
confident.
thought
So I
too.
feel like
Cool.
it wouldn't be super
Exactly.
absurd if you
I
used the
mean,
wrong fork for salad.
I was supposed to go to like
dessert.
some etiquette classes to like learn how to which utensils to use, but I skipped all 3 of them. So
Proud.
I know, right? Maybe I should have gone to them. I don't know. And you have like this knife. This don't contaminate that with this knife. It's all
Don't contaminate it. Got it.
Oh, very-
Is that tea?
Yes.
Yeah.
My favorite black tea. Hi.
How are you?
Good. My name is Honey.
I'm Shivani.
Nice to meet you. Your seat's right over there.
Yeah, did I encroach on somebody's spot with my laptop?
No, I left that for you.
Okay,
So.
fantastic.
Oh man, this is weird.
Also, like if you wanted to eat,
Oh,
you
you
also
look
have
at
like
the
this.
pulled
How does it
out.
do?
Yeah,
Like,
corner.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
to eat.
That might be
accelerometer, like-
simpler, yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Wait.
terrible because we are a couple
Yeah,
got to
obviously
pull
can't
out
put it on
because
your cell
Dad
phone.
works on hilarious.
Okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
Mac and cheese and all that other
That
stuff.
sounds difficult.
Hopefully they're gonna get some mac and cheese here soon. So. So you pronounce your name Shivani.
Yeah, Shivani.
Nice. All right.
Have you heard it a different way?
Um,
That's right.
someone had like more of an E or an I, like a harder sound at the end.
I guess that's how it's supposed to be pronounced, but
I get it. Don't worry.
just whatever. It's fine.
What you
So
doing?
funny. I'm just looking at the feed
Oh.
on my phone.
Literally, she turned around.
Yeah.
You're like, where am I?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah, so
Oh, this is a feed.
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
live streamed for the 3D camera.
Pretty cool.
So yeah, you can go to KU Community Conversation on YouTube if you wanna look at it.
Katie
And-
told. Oh,
Yeah,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. Katie's gonna be late, right?
Yeah, Katie told me she'll be here probably like right on time because she was in a meeting.
That's totally fine. Tamara will also be here probably right on time as well, so, cause
Cool.
she's a very busy lady.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Rotate this a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't have to.
Well, she told me to do it off of my app, so that's what I did.
Hmm.
Who's the secret? Oh, okay.
May or may not be here. Not
Okay.
for sure, so. I'm leaning towards not,
Yeah.
because didn't hear up on the fall, but wondering if there's a seat. Hey, what's up?
Sorry, I'm a little late.
No, you're fine.
How did your seat?
Yep.
Yep, I guess.
So we had 2 people cancel because they had to work. Ironic. So I think everyone that's gonna be here is here while they're still getting the food. I'll kind of give you like a little bit of history and background on what this is. So it's called KU Community Conversation. So it's actually started out of housing. It used to be called President's Roundtable. They used to do it a couple of years ago, but then they kind of stopped because there was lack of involvement, students wanting to do it. So we started up again this year, and KU Housing was really hoping that we could attract more students to being involved on campus, because over the years, involvement on campus has dropped in terms of leadership, people going to events, and just like committing and wanting to be a part of the campus. So we're hoping that by bringing in different leaders and different perspectives into these conversations, we can kind of bring people back, address those issues, and move forward with those kinds of things. So you all have very different perspectives that you're bringing in. So I ask that y'all please be bold, be yourselves, and say, even if someone says something you disagree with it, please bring that up, because that's the only way we're going to be able to address those issues. So please be forthcoming. So that's the little history and spiel. Anyone have questions though before we get going? Awesome. I'm going to go check in the kitchen and see where the rest of the food is, and I'll be right back.
I just like ran here. I'm really tired. He is very serious. Like, that was a very serious talk.
Yeah. It's all one
But it was
thing.
good. It was just interesting to listen to. I feel like I wasted his time a little bit, but I had a good time, so.
Alright, y'all can go ahead and get food. It's all in that one nice container. Yes.
Basically, yeah. I mean, I was just kind of, is this transition from medicine like public service like even possible? And he was just like,
Yeah, definitely fun.
so nice. It's really, really great. I would have starved myself. I know, I was like, I should bring lunch.
Sorry, I should have told you it's more enticing hour, right? That mac and cheese is by far the best mac and cheese you'll ever eat in life.
Tomorrow at the market, mac and cheese day?
Huh?
Tomorrow at the market is mac and cheese day?
Yeah, but this is a different mac and cheese than the one market, I'm pretty sure.
Hold on, have you had the Bill Self though?
No, what's that?
It's buffalo mac and cheese.
Well, it's a vegetarian. That's very vegetarian friendly, so.
Has never had meat. I learned
Yeah.
on Sunday.
I did not know those were being
Oh,
done.
that's so awkward.
I think my third one was just a weird explanation of like I had toes on. Because people don't know what that means.
Did he not read that?
Huh?
Did he read that?
He did.
Oh.
But no one's gonna know what that means. That explanation, and that I had sharp teeth, which means all my teeth then fell out 4 times and then come back. Yeah, so most of my teeth have fallen out 4 times. Do they call it like shark teeth or something like that? Yeah. Hi. How are you? Awesome. Your seats are over there. Yeah, we're just gonna get food first before we get started. So.
This weekend I did.
Green on this plate.
Hi.
Gallery seating over there.
Yeah, exactly. You got to join the Kennett Gallery seating?
I don't think I'm at the big
Yeah.
table. You guys.
Yeah. Drink it up.
Nice that it's warm today.
She makes me so happy. It's like butter.
Survive it yourself.
Yeah, like last minute.
Yeah.
Jacqueline Carpenter.
Yes, she actually gave me her idea.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and
Oh, and he calls
Yes. And when I
That's quite the chicken with barbecue sauce.
that was one thing to get your master.
Yeah, I didn't get any mac and cheese. I felt it was just.
You think you're academic?
That's what I
I was gonna dip this
What are
in
your
the
problems? I'm only get you a box. Oh, you sure?
I think our exec board is like 3 of the 4 viewers right now, and they're all messaging me about it and making fun of my green mug. So,
Is this on right now?
yeah, it's on that thing.
So, you guys feel good about closeout?
Now I'm gonna like rethink everything I do.
My family's gonna like just roast me the entire time.
How would they know though?
I told them.
Oh gosh, that was your first mistake.
It's really my fault.
Yeah.
See yourself on a That's why I didn't look at it. My parents like want to watch it, which I think is really cute.
Oh.
I know. I was like, I was like, I don't know.
saying if the three of you are kind of cramped in corners, y'all can like space that. I don't know. There's no one who's gonna sit here. I don't know if that's more room or less room, but.
I'm already settled in, so I'm good.
Okay.
What you're basically telling them is they can move, but you
Alright, we'll wait a couple more minutes for Tamara. Y'all can join the meeting till then.
Oh, this is an interesting.
Also, Annie, so this is being live streamed on 360 camera. Just
Heads
up.
up.
Yeah, heads up.
Sorry, I missed your call. I just.
Oh, and it's okay. For some reason, I didn't read the email good enough, and I was like,
Where am I going?
This is not the best macaroni and cheese bun. Come on, you can't tell me.
It's pretty good.
I'd say it's a solid top 10 for me. Actually, poor fondant is really good mac and cheese too.
really?
Yeah,
Hmm.
it is actually pretty spectacular.
Right? And these brownies, the two best things, in my opinion.
Mm. Yeah, I'm gonna miss Union brownies after graduation.
You just order a bunch of them and freeze them.
That's such a good idea. Just bring them to Kansas City. Lifetime supply.
Good freezer storage unit.
I'll just come back every like few months and just order a bunch.
Yeah.
Get my
Still
Just
too.
sitting in the.
Yeah,
Enroll in like
technically.
3 credit hours.
Alright, well, let's just get started and Tamara will pop in when she is ready. So, kind of give them all the pitch, but real fast. So, this kind of started as an initiative through housing to get more students involved on campus. So we had another conversation, it's called Freedom of Speech, we did that a couple of months ago. And how can we, talk about freedom of speech on campus? Is there things that we can do to have students feel more involved and feel like they matter on campus through freedom of speech? This time, we're going to be talking about community service and how does that look. So how do we get more leaders involved? How do we get more volunteers involved in our different organizations? And how do we draw in those freshmen from a younger age? We'll also talk a little bit about internships and how those play out, because some students can't be leaders and volunteer because they have the financial means, they have to work, have to have an internship. So we'll kind of talk a little about that. But if there's anything that y'all want to bring up, please feel free to do so. This isn't a very structured conversation, it's very organic. You can say whatever you would like. And like I was saying before, please be bold and please be forthcoming. Make sure that you're speaking your truth because that's why y'all are here. So I'll start off with the broad general question of how do we get more students involved in community service organizations on campus?
I'll just start off by saying that in the beginning of the year, so I'm an RA in Oliver this year, and it's definitely an issue. I'll start off by having an interview with them to get to know them and everything, ask what they're already looking to get involved with on campus if they want to. And at the beginning, they're super eager, they want to see all this, all the opportunities on campus, and they want to do as much as they can, but it's a little overwhelming. They don't know exactly which direction to go. I always give my plug of SUA is a great organization to be in. Big Event is a great organization that has a 1 day of service. You can have leadership positions in that, but they almost never follow through with it. And I can definitely vouch for the fact that it is a huge issue that just for some reason, they're excited, they sound like they want to get involved, but they just don't. And it's frustrating.
I'll add to that. So I am a graduate assistant at the Center for Service Learning, and this is a need that we saw in our office because some folks maybe volunteered in high school, but they don't really know where to get started, or maybe it's the first time that they're kind of stepping into that space. And so we started the Pathways to Service initiative, which is actually, we do a series of different ways that students can get involved. And so we've kind of designed it for freshman students who are kind of looking to navigate those spaces. And so we've designed 6 different pathways that students can engage in to line up their knowledge and passions with also, being able to build communities and all of that. So our pathways are volunteering, advocacy, research, social innovator, policy shaper, and mentor and educator. And so we've designed some series that we do throughout each semester, which we found can be helpful, but it is also hard, trying to find those students who are interested in service to bring to those pathways to even educate them. So that's something that we're navigating too.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I guess I'm the executive director for the Center for Community Outreach. My name's Katie. Basically, I think what we've seen over the last few years is college is getting really expensive, textbooks are really expensive, so a lot of students are having to take out pretty significant loans and are also having to work at least one job to even be able to be a student here. So even though they may have had that interest in service in high school, their time management kind of takes that away as a priority. So I think that's something that we've seen happen a lot. I know our numbers have kind of fallen in the last couple of years regarding our volunteer numbers. So I guess just like continuing to emphasize that there's a lot of value in serving your community and you learn a lot from it that you may not learn from being in the classroom, that it's worth like still putting up there on your priority list.
So how do we, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, my name's Zach, by the way, anybody who I haven't met yet.
Introductions.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Sorry, I didn't supposed to you when you walked in.
I'm the vice president of my fraternity here on campus. I know that we force everyone, I shouldn't say force, we require everyone to join an outside organization that doesn't include the fraternity, and we require them to do service hours that are, involved outside of us. So you can't tutor, one of our fraternity brothers and say that's service. You actually have to go to, a soup kitchen or something like that. I picked up food for Andy before, things of that nature, and that's how we incentivize their involvement in the community. And we found, at least from our end, that our guys get way more involved on campus and they stay in the paths that they get in their freshman year because, they're incentivized to start and now they're involved, so they may as well finish. And I don't know how we could apply something like that to outside organizations, but it's just something that we've noticed as a positive trend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's definitely a challenge to reach those students who aren't already in like an established organization.
Right.
I know that's something we've talked about. Annie's actually our advisor. But how can we reach those populations of students that don't necessarily have that already established connection on campus?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I think if you're in Greek life, you've already taken the steps to like get involved, right?
Right.
So it's like how to really pull those students in, like freshmen, sophomores, maybe even transfer students, right, or international students. How do we get them to get involved on campus through these opportunities? Because like you were saying, they give you a different output than an internship. Like being a leader in these organizations or just having that hands-on experience gives you a lot more experience, in my opinion, than sometimes an internship does. So how do you draw those different populations in?
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I kind of have thought about a lot in the past few months is kind of particularly thinking about kind of the advocacy events that the CCO puts on and kind of difficulty in getting people to come to those, and especially kind of comparing like difficulty getting students to attend those versus kind of more Lawrence community sort of advocacy sort of events where they seem to get actually a great deal of attendance. And I think one reason that I kind of think that is that people, I think, often want to do service to kind of to find a community, to find something to be a part of if they feel that they're not connected in other ways. And I think historically, like, it's been very common that someone, like, thinking kind of more in my parents' generation back when, you didn't have a computer in your room for sure. You probably didn't even have a TV in your room, and so you kind of really had that kind of need for community. You needed to get out to fulfill that, where now I feel like there's a lot of trouble in you have to compete with online communities that people already feel a part of, and you need to be able to say, kind of give them a reason to get out of kind of those communities that they're already a part of and say, show them that somehow this community opportunity is going to be more important and more fulfilling, which I really believe that it is. but it's not as simple now as the choice between, you know, either not doing something or doing something. Now it's like I can do this thing in this online community that I'm already familiar with, or I could kind of take the risk with my time and try something that is unfamiliar to me. And I think that's a really challenging question, and it's something that I've been thinking about, and I don't necessarily know what the answer looks like, but yeah, that's kind of my thought on why that has been difficult, especially recently. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone else agrees with that or disagrees with that.
I totally
but,
agree. Yeah.
No, yeah, you're talking about finding a way to get people out of their comfort zone and push them into something that might be new or might be intimidating to join. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an issue that we see, and you know, I'm sure all of the other organizations see it as well.
Like oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, definitely it's something too that's changed a lot recently, is that people are looking to get involved with organizations that they know they're going to get something directly out of, or why are they spending all their time in this organization? So that's one way that SUA has been trying to change our recruitment marketing, is what specific skills will you get as a direct result of doing your job in this organization. And I think that we haven't started implementing those yet, but I think that's a step in the right direction, rather than join us, we're a lot of fun, like make events. It's like, well, what else is there that I can apply to my job and things like that. And I think that goes along with like getting people out of their rooms and doing something that they think is beneficial for their time.
Yeah, I think it comes down to making sure that everybody knows when you do this thing, it is adding value to you as a person. It is something that has tangible results. It has something that you can either put on your resume or that helps develop you and get you ready for your career. And I think that's smart that you guys are doing that, and it'll probably help with recruitment a lot.
Hopefully so.
Yeah, sorry. Students are really like career centered in their thinking about how they're going to spend their time, and I think that's another reason why service may fall kind of shorter or farther down on your priority list is people may not initially recognize that the career skills and personal development skills that you get out of spending your time serving your community, because I think it competes with like internships or other campus positions that may look better for like what you're interested in doing. So yeah, I think it's definitely important for service organizations to really emphasize that there's a lot of value in spending your time with us.
And I think that it also is hard to navigate what everyone's interests are, because sometimes direct service may not be the way that someone wants to serve their community. It could be through like advocacy, or it could be through research, researching needs that communities have. And so I think that kind of shaping the conversation of like, it doesn't have to be this exact way when you serve. It could look a lot different depending on your skills and knowledge and interests too.
Kind of going back to like what Amy's talking about now, that we have to compete with technology and the different communities that come there. So one of the things is you constantly have to adapt. So is there a way for us to move into the online space with our organization?
I think yes and no. So, I mean, at least for service organizations, I'm the executive director for the Big Event. Our main goal is to make a bridge between Lawrence and KU, because there is a divide, because they're always like, oh, the college students, and they're like, oh, the townies. It happens all the time. But I think that we could use more technology, but it's never going to be technology dependent completely, because we have to have that direct service. In order to make that bridge, you have to make that face-to-face contact, and I think that's something that a lot of the generations now are kind of steering away from. They don't want the direct contact, they want the technology. They have their online communities. Like, my brother doesn't want to go to school because he can do it online, and he wants to be a gamer. And yeah, it's nice. It's fantastic that he wants to do that, but he doesn't want to go out and do the extra step of making those face-to-face contacts with the service organizations that are around him. And I think that's something that a lot of the generation is lacking now, and it's hard to compete with. And I think it's just, we're never going to be able to be technology dependent, at least not the big event specifically because we have to have that direct.
Yeah, sure. The CCO has kind of used technology in the last 3 years to sort of like innovate how we have volunteers sign up. So we have like a volunteer platform that makes it really easy for people to find service, but we can't, obviously you can't serve a nonprofit through your computer, so they then have to go follow up on their commitment to do that. So I think there's ways that we can still adapt as service organizations to adjust to like the rise in technology in our society, but it's definitely a challenge. Like I know I've fallen victim to like Sunday afternoon and I'm like watching Netflix in bed and I don't want to get up and go to like the meeting that I said I would go to, and it's just like, oh, I have to get up. So it's definitely, yeah, a new challenge. That's something I hadn't really ever thought of before, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, I think, I think kind of what we've been talking about is really great. Like being able to, like one thing I guess that the CCO does that I really like, and I think a lot of campus organizations do this, is still like making a presence online. And I know, so I use Facebook for pretty much one reason, and that is events, like knowing about them, finding out, and like, you know, I have it so it like goes straight to my calendar, so I don't have to think about when it is and everything. But that's like, I think one really easy way for organizations to kind of have kind of a presence online is just, you know, having those events and getting people to go, and hopefully getting people passionate about them when they go, like just so people can kind of advocate for it, you know, going to events with this organization. But also I think one thing that's difficult, this is kind of changing gears, sorry. One thing that's difficult too is that a lot of these online community spaces, for example Facebook, have kind of in the past several years been working to kind of increase what they'll call engagement with their platform, but in some sense you could say they're trying to increase, some would say, the addiction to the platform. They're trying to keep you coming back and keep checking it and kind of make that like where you go when you want to see what your friends are doing, versus more of the model of like going to see people face to face and using technology more as like a communication to get to face communication. Like I'd say I'm personally not really someone that likes to spend a lot of time on technology and communicating that way. It's just not something that I enjoy in comparison to face. Like a lot of my texts are like simple to the point things, or like trying to set up meetings to actually talk face to face. I don't do a lot of kind of long form planning or anything like that over text. It's not really like what I like, but yeah, I think it's hard to compete with platforms that are really designed oftentimes to keep people coming back to them. You know, when it's obviously a lot more work to leave your front door even. Yeah, that's just a thought that I have. So, and I just realized I didn't introduce myself also. I am Andy Monroe. I will be next year's Executive Director of the Center for Community Outreach. Also, I'm a computer science student, so technology is something that I think about a lot.
I think a lot of what we've been talking about is like long-term involvement in these organizations, but how do we even get students to come out and donate blood, a one-time thing, or go to the big event, a one-time thing, or there's like some tabling for a health initiative and we want students to come out for that one-time event. How do we really draw those students out to get their foot in the door, maybe just that one time?
You know, we talked a lot about face-to-face and how beneficial that is. And I agree, like, it is very beneficial to have face-to-face conversations, but if we haven't communicated the information, or if they don't know the information exists, frankly, when I was a freshman here, I know the CCO, like, had advertisements around campus, but I had no idea that the CCO existed until I joined my fraternity, and they were requiring me to do service. I think things like finding a way to integrate with social media, finding a way to maybe integrate with sites like KU's website in a more prevalent way, where it's upfront, it's sort of in the underclassmen's face and saying, this is here, you should check this out. It's just as important as all these other things that you're doing with your college experience. I think that's how you draw people out. So you get them out of their freshman community. I know my floor was very close, and like I stuck with them a lot of the time, but I think that's how you draw those communities out, maybe together and get them involved, or maybe you draw the individuals out of those communities. So.
Yeah. Okay. No, something that I love is collaboration between student groups. I just like love sitting down with other like leaders of other organizations and talking about how we can work together. So things like this I get really excited about, like working with like housing to increase the CCO's presence in like dorm life is something that I think are going to try to explore more. I took some steps last year to reach out to Greek life more extensively. So there's just, I think, kind of goes back to the technology thing, but like making the effort on the leadership level to really reach out to others and show them why you're passionate about service and get them excited about helping the members of their organization or the groups that they are involved with excited about it too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you made a good point about social media. I think the first step should be meeting them halfway on social media, on the platforms that they obviously spend all of their time on, and introducing the concept to them, and then building on why it's important and things like that, but getting that initial step in the door, which I think is something that most organizations are doing as it is. But that's definitely the first step, is relating to them in the ways that they are familiar with.
As far as like one-time events, I remember that was the question that you asked. Just like making it really fun. I don't know, like Super Service Saturdays kind of our like big one-day event, and we give all the volunteers a T-shirt and provide pizza, and Big J was there this year, so they could like take pictures with him. So I don't know, if it's like a one-time thing, I guess really like making the investment to make sure that it's a really great event so that people are going to want to come back following that event. Super Service Saturdays in the fall, like it's a Hawk Week event, so the idea is kind of it introduces freshmen and new students to the CCO so that they aren't interested in coming back for the rest of the year to do service with us. So just making it like a good time.
Yeah, and definitely like with those one-time events, that's something as an RA that we have to do, is like programming that has to follow along a certain curriculum that we have. So a lot of that too is how do we make the event appealing, and how do we make the residents want to come and stay and participate, but also like teach them whatever we're trying to instill in them through that curriculum. So like an example of that was to talk about like diversity and things like that. We had an inclusion puzzle where they got to like decorate a puzzle piece, and like they got to put whatever they wanted on it that like related to them or not, just like draw whatever, and then on the back they put identities that they felt comfortable identifying with. And so in that sense, we like made it a fun event where they could like decorate things and have fun, like talk with their friends, but then they also like learned about the identities that they and their friends have. So like I think, yeah, like it has to be something that they're gonna enjoy doing in the long run.
Yeah, so I actually, we had a lot of difficulty getting people to come to one-time events for us, because we're kind of like, so I'm with Jayhawk Health Initiative, which is kind of like a broad organization. We do service trips abroad to Panama usually, but this year we're going to Nicaragua. So like 2 years ago, we started a local branch where we would be able to do like stuff in the community, and we had a lot of difficulty getting consistent attendance at those meetings. But this year we kind of changed it, and we thought like we should do something that would be like of interest to pre-health majors specifically. And so we organized a panel with pre-health professionals, which is something that like students will definitely want to go to, and we saw attendance go up a lot. And so I think like focusing on things that like I personally would also want to go attend, and not just like having general body meetings, I think is part of a way of getting people involved and like coming back at those events, because if they benefit from it, I feel like they'll want to keep coming because they feel like they'll benefit more. So.
Yeah, I think also navigating the purpose of the event and like the importance behind it. Because oftentimes I think some events you have all this programming, but the mission of why you're doing the event can get thrown to the wayside. So kind of reiterating why it's important, but also having plans and steps, like what's next. So if there's no like action plan next, then students are probably not going to engage further because they don't really have a plan. But if there is like, here are some things I'm going to do when I leave, or here are some next events I'm going to come to, or I'm going to work with this nonprofit because that's what I'm really interested in, I think it just helps guide them, and it kind of gives them some structure as well, just so they don't leave kind of clueless on what's next.
Yeah, I think doing that kind of follow-up is really important,
Mhm.
because you know, if you do a service event and maybe it's at the beginning of your college career, like during Hawk Week or something like that, there's a lot being thrown at you at that time. You know, you're adapting to being at a school, some students are coming from abroad, all sorts of things, challenges that they're facing. That kind of follow-up to say, hey, you did this thing, it was a lot of fun, really enjoyed having you out there, you should come back and do something like that again. I think that's important to maintain interest and to keep them coming back and being active in whatever organization it is.
Yeah, I feel like getting that first step to like get them to attend the event, and then they realize, oh, this is actually really, really fun, and then they'll keep coming.
Yeah, exactly.
But like so many people, I feel like sign up for CCO events, and then like because there's not that like guilt of, oh, if I don't show up, no one's gonna like say anything. They like just don't show up, and they don't get to experience that initial like event. And so I feel like that is something that like maybe like if we could get them to go to the actual event, or like show them that this is actually like an amazing event, they'll like keep coming back.
Yeah, I think also one thing, if we're just talking about like the simplest thing to get more people to attend an event, especially early in the year, I think we all know is free food.
Oh, yeah.
Like Super Service Saturday, we have free pizza and we advertise it. And so I think that's just something that you can't get from your online community. You can't go online and get free food.
True. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
So that's like something that we can kind of provide for people to come to the events. That is something that they really can't get by not coming. And so I think that's I think the easiest like get them in the door tactic. You know, I think there are other great tactics out there, but if you just want like simple and straightforward and pretty reliable, honestly, like a free pizza on, you know, whatever poster for the event, it helps a lot. But also one thing that I think, looking kind of back at organizations where I've kind of, you know, been in and out over the years, is I'm a lot more likely to come back if somebody who is like really involved with the organization specifically talked to me and like learned my name, and like when I leave, whatever it was, like they like said goodbye, like hope you come again. And that's something, because when you think about it, if you go to, you know, one of these sorts of events and you know, maybe you enjoy it, but like you never really talk to anybody or anything like that, you just kind of blend in with the crowd. No one will notice when you don't show up next time, right? But maybe as kind of leaders in our organizations, if we can maybe try kind of that intentional effort of like going around and like talking to people specifically, and trying to be conscious of like investing in everyone as individuals, making them feel like they specifically are valued for being there and for like being a part of that community, and like in service specifically, like that they specifically were valued for coming and doing that service, and yeah, that they're like a part of a group of people who like are connecting with one another. Because if they come and they don't ever build any connections, then what is going to hold them back the next time? You know, if maybe you can't afford free food for every single event. But yeah, I think that's just some ideas that I kind of have.
It's kind of funny you say that. We have a saying for recruitment where a guy, no matter what the fraternity is, no matter what the brand reputation is, he's going to go to the one where he feels like he has the most friends. And that's it. That's the bottom line. And so something that we did to change recruitment, because that was my position a year ago, was we stopped having everything be a formal event. You know, it was great to invite guys out to places where we were tabling or a union fest or things like that and have that sort of formal introduction. But we also wanted to bring them out to, well, these are the people in the organization. Why don't you just come out and hang out with us? Why don't you just come? We're watching. We had the Floyd Mayweather Conor McGregor fight on a big projector in one of our guys' backyards, and we invited a bunch of guys who were thinking about joining the organization to that, so that they could have that sort of more relaxed environment. And we found that our retention with those kind of people who got integrated, who felt like they had friends, who felt like, hey, I'm going to this organization. It's not only going to help me with my future. It's not only going to benefit me in X, Y, and Z ways, but I'm going back to somewhere where I have friends and where I have people who I can hang out with and socialize with. And I think that'll eliminate a lot of the apprehension of, well, I have my tight little online circle like we talked about earlier, and I don't want to branch out from that.
Yeah, a unique challenge, I'm sure Big Event shares a really similar challenge, is we really have a lot of room to improve on regarding volunteer appreciation, because we focus so much on obtaining the volunteer numbers that we need, but we don't focus enough on after they've came and served with us. We don't ever really reach out and say thank you. And that's hard because we rely on like 25 program coordinators. They get a small stipend a semester. They only work about 3 to 5 hours a week. So that would be a lot on them to reach out to every single volunteer that they see and say thank you, but definitely could use a lot of improvement in coming years, and I think it would help kind of foster more of like a community around like being involved with the CCO. I mean, it's kind of like a campus resource for students, but to some it may just feel like an organization, I don't know. So I guess it would help them feel more appreciated, maybe have them come back and volunteer with us again.
Yeah, and SUA has one of the other members of our exec team is vice president of development, who her job is pretty much to like reach out to those committee members, people who aren't leaders in SUA, and make sure that they're enjoying their time. And she does little things like we have spooky board, like Halloween themed board in October, and last year I was the recruitment coordinator and worked under her, and we put together Christmas presents for them and things like that, just like little things to make them feel like they are part of the group. So I think that definitely those work in some respects, and then other things that she tries to do interestingly don't work as well, surprisingly. Like was it last week we tried to do invite everybody to half-price apps at Applebee's, and she was going to pay for them, and not very many people showed up. There are other factors behind that, but it's also interesting that some of those efforts definitely go a long way, and some of them kind of fall flat sometimes. So
I think that's super interesting, and I think Siobhan, you're the first one to bring this up, is that I think y'all are saying that when someone enters the organization, you have a good job keeping them in the organization in terms of retention. But from what I've seen, I feel like that's not the case, and like people will come into an organization, but then they fall out within a couple of months. Are y'all seeing a different side of that? Do people actually stay in the organizations?
I think for Big Event at least, we have a committee and we don't have an issue of them leaving. We have an issue with them wanting to be leaders. And this year, I worked really hard with my team to make sure that we were more transparent about what does each position do. I believe that's really important. And then directors attended committee meetings a little bit more this semester to really engage with the committee. And I think that's helped. We have applicants a little bit earlier this year, and we always get enough applicants, but I think that's more of the issue, is finding those leaders, those people that want to take the extra step, and not just stay in the organization. Because we've had people there for 3 years now that continuously come. They come to every committee meeting, but they don't want to take the extra step to become the leader in the organization. And I think that's where we're struggling. It's something that we're trying to really engage in and help with. I just think leadership around campus is starting to dwindle. It's like, as a generation, I know we're not the only organization that we've struggled getting leaders. And part of it is we lost leaders because of jobs. They needed to get jobs in order to survive. And taking those extra hours, especially because we don't get money for Big Event, it's hard. They're going to prioritize that money, and I think that's where we're lacking, not necessarily keeping them.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely see the same problem with SUA because going from a committee member who has a 2-hour-a-week obligation to a leader who has a 10-hour-a-week obligation, that obviously takes a lot of time away that they could use with a job, getting money to pay rent or for textbooks or things like that. That definitely takes priority over that experience, which is just unfortunate. And we do give our leaders scholarships, but in most cases it's just not comparable to the time commitment that they make.
Yeah, our issue is a little bit similar to yours. So like we have an exec board, which is kind of basically our entire organization. The other part of it is like brigaders who go on the brigade and then they kind of like fall out after the brigade. But like a handful of them will apply for the exec board. And then what we do every year at the beginning during the COC week, we'll advertise for assistant applications. So that's basically all freshmen and sophomores who will be assistants to people on the exec board. I think like pretty much 75% of those people don't show up to the meeting, so we'll get like 3 or 4 freshmen, sophomores will stay, and so I think those people who choose to stay end up going far and like choosing to become leaders later on. I think that has kind of like helped us not just fall off as an organization, but it's still really hard to get freshmen to like stay on board, especially when you don't give them like a huge role, but like they really want to be involved, but you don't really know what to get them to do. It's kind of hard.
I think something so we also talked about was how Generation Z, the upcoming generation, they want tangible things afterwards, right? So like, I got these skills, I can put it on my resume. And I think that one of the struggles is that I think internship has become a sexy resume word. People like putting that on their resume, whereas putting president or director just doesn't hold the same value as it once did. So is there something that we can do to maybe like call our positions internships now?
I mean, I don't know if you necessarily call them internships, but I do know like my experience and everything that I had on my resume from what I've done in my organization, it helped me get my internship because I was able to display things that I was doing. I said, talked about recruitment, talked about being a VP and the things that, like the actual experiences that I had. And I think it's not necessarily identifying these things as internships. I think these will help you get your internships. This experience that you can put down that you have gotten looks good and it's appealing to an employer. Because you're right, internship it looks good on a resume. Everyone wants to have an internship on their resume regardless of what field you're going into typically. But if we can show that these experiences, it might be hard, it takes time and you're gonna have to prioritize certain things that you normally wouldn't have. But if you do that and if you put in the effort, you can put it on your resume and it'll help you get those internships that you want and help push you towards your future goals. I think that's more important than renaming the things that we're doing.
I don't know, I think it would be worthwhile maybe having some sort of like workshop or event that would help students maybe understand how to frame community service on their resumes or in interviews. I mean, myself personally, like in my med school interview, I essentially just talked about my work with the CCO for 30 minutes. So like, it was really, really helpful, and I can easily apply it, I guess, to the field that I was wanting to go in, which I understand maybe isn't as easy as a connection for others. But no, it's definitely a really valuable career skill. Like you're learning how to work with other people, you're learning about other populations. Like no matter what job you end up doing, you're still going to be a community member. Like there's a lot of value in learning how to relate to other people. So I don't know, I think that there's ways that it can be framed in the job search that makes you stand out just as much as an internship would, I think.
It makes you a more well-rounded applicant for anything.
Shows
that you're
experiences.
doing.
I totally definitely agree, and I feel like we all can relate to that, but I think one of the things is how do we communicate that to everybody else? Like how do we get them to understand that it will?
Yeah, I think, it'd be the leaders showing the tangible results of it. When we recruit guys, I've talked to guys about how, I spent an hour talking to the people that wound up hiring me about my fraternity experience. They didn't talk to me about my GPA. They didn't talk to me about, my major, KU Business School. They were talking to me about my experiences in leadership positions because they want to see how it shaped you. They want to see how you think. And you know, I think that is important, you know, giving them that perspective and giving them that way to frame it. And I think it needs to come from the people who are most active in the organization to the people who are either just entering or maybe on the fence or being hesitant about being more active.
Yeah, and I think, teaching kind of the people who are involved in leadership in your organization how to talk about it and how to really explain kind of what they do in a professional way, so that they don't kind of lose the value that could be there that, you know, really they have, that maybe employers don't see, like talking about, I guess, using kind of more clear language, like, you know, I coordinated, you know, 6 volunteers every week for 3 hours to run a food pantry just off of campus, and I also coordinated, and yeah, kind of that whole kind of long discussion. One thing that the CCO did last year, that kind of in hindsight that I think is good for kind of developing the skills, we had all of our programs at our core meetings. When we have all of our program coordinators together, we would have them present basically their programs to the entire core, because you know, volunteer coordinators are working at many different times in the office throughout the week, and some of them might not see each other and might not really know what's going on. And so I think it was more an initiative for helping the entire CCO to kind of understand what everyone's doing. But I think one of the added benefits of that is it gives kind of a professional setting for coordinators to talk about their program and what they're doing in kind of a more formal setting, so that they get practice for that before they go into an interview, let's say, where that kind of presentation skill might be useful. And that could be something also that, like in the CCO, that leadership could help make sure that coordinators are prepared to give that presentation and kind of have the resources to explain themselves really clearly and in a way that,
So the other thing that I think internships offer that maybe like positions on campus don't is the financial stability, right? Internships can pay anywhere from $8 to $15, and someone that's, you know, struggling financially, an internship is more appealing to them. So how do we get students involved who are struggling financially?
Our office actually, recently, it was, this semester was our first time to do it, but there's a course, it's UNIB 492, and it's a course that's based, the content of the course you learn about systems and different spaces that you can interact with when you are doing service, and then all of the interwoven stuff within that. But then also part of the course is going out and doing service. And so you're actually in the community applying the content that you're learning in the classroom to the community need, and so it's a service learning course. But we actually have our office has a couple, I think there's 5 scholarships that are available for students to apply, so you kind of are able to combat that financial component of what service can be, because even service learning courses, like you're paying for a class, and you're doing service outside, but you still have to pay for the content. And then if you're engaging in service in the community, that's time that you could be working. So it's hard to make service totally accessible, but I do think there are certain resources on campus that can help somewhat navigate those conversations.
Yeah, so like with our organization, it obviously requires a lot of money to go on one of these brigades. We have to like you have to pay for the flight ticket and like housing and food and all that. So what we do is we do something similar. We have scholarships, so like people who do the most service throughout the year, have the most service hours, they can get like up to $100 a scholarship or whatever. And then we also try to help them through like fundraisers. So what we do every year is we do a t-shirt fundraiser where we'll like design the t-shirts and buy the t-shirts, and then they can sell them for however much and then keep the profit. And I know other organizations do similar thing. They do like grilled cheese fundraisers where like you can volunteer at that, and then whatever you make selling the grilled cheese you get to keep. And so I think things like that could help financially and kind of like even the playing field of like, if you want to do service, like financial burden should not be like the factor that inhibits you from doing that.
Yeah, time is obviously a huge restricting factor for access to service among college students, but the CCO has, I can think of service opportunities that range from starting at 6 a.m. to ending at 7 p.m. So there's a lot of like flexibility within volunteering that I don't know if a lot of people necessarily see. I think a lot of people wait around for like an event to come up and then they're like, oh, this may be something I'm interested in doing. But if you actively go out and search for the opportunity, I mean, Jubilee Cafe is from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. twice a week. Just committing to do that like a couple times a semester. I mean, most people's jobs, unless they work at one of the like dining halls and do breakfast services, wouldn't start at 6 a.m. So I don't know. I feel like there's potential ways that you can work it into your schedule, even though so many college students are working. But I know that's not easy to say. But
Yeah, I think you're right.
Really
I mean,
apply to a lot.
even encouraging, hey, like I know you're working a lot, but do an hour. You know, do 2 hours, 1 hour here, 2 hours there. Like, just because you're working, you still should try to get involved, you know. I know from my personal experience, I was a TA and I was doing recruitment and being involved with another organization. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Best Buddies, but doing that at the same time, you know, it does take a lot out of you, but, you know, squeezing in that hour and encouraging people to find a little bit of time, even when their schedule can seem kind of overwhelming, is, I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think like just knowing people in an organization, like that's kind of like an unconventional way, but like just like by meeting people, like I found out about my on-campus job, which is like PLUS, which is like a science and like biology related job, through like my organization because someone else had the same job, and so I was able to apply for that, and then like I also TA'd for other courses, and so like just knowing people and like learning about different jobs in the community could also help a little bit.
So yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and I definitely think that we shouldn't try to compete with internships, but emphasizing, like you said earlier, the skills that you gain from doing this leadership to get those internships, and to do it coinciding with whatever job opportunities or whatever you have going on. That's just as important as the money you have coming in, because finances are hard for everybody and offering a scholarship isn't always possible. So with that some option, then those skills should be like what you market to them is what you're getting out of it.
So my last question, I guess, in this last 10 minutes that we have together is, how do we work together? So we all represent different organizations, right, and different backgrounds on campus. So how do we all come together and support each other in trying to solve this problem?
I think what like Katie said, like just like meeting with other leadership groups, like specifically for us, like we've wanted to get more like local community service going, and so like I think meeting with CCO or like other groups and like making the connection, and also like having our brigaders like go to those events more and like encouraging them to go would also help, because they'll see like us as leaders going to those, and like kind of like different leaders going to the events that other groups put on may also help a little bit.
Yeah, I think like supporting and promoting the other events of organizations on campus is always a beneficial thing, because you support them, they'll support you back, and it's a mutual thing that you might combine different groups of people that may not have otherwise known about that student organization.
I know, like, we like to have people come and present to us and like tell us about their organization and things that they're doing. I think for us, I mean, definitely reaching out to those organizations more and asking them to come in, like reaching out to Big Event, reaching out to CCO, like that would help us. And I hope it would help you guys and prove beneficial on that end as well. And I definitely think like integrating our activities a little bit more and trying to make it more of a collective effort and, you know, work together. Yeah, we have individual goals as organizations, but, you know, showing that we're all working towards the same greater goal, I think that'll definitely get people moving in the right direction.
So I think when I looked it up, on Rock Chalk Central, there's like 79, it's like classified as community service organizations, and like I didn't even know about all 79 of them and all the leaders that, you know, are presidents and vice presidents. So how do we connect, like, as leaders, if that's, you know, the best mechanism to support each other? How do we find those leaders? How do we connect with them then?
So if they're all listed under community service, it sounds like there's a lot of potential for collaborating. I'm sure all of the missions of those organizations complement each other really nicely. Like example, Big Event CCO, we're both service organizations, but that have the same goals in mind, but we do two different things, but there's still room for collaboration regardless. So I think our relationship's gotten a lot better this year, which is really exciting. But there's definitely a lot more out there apparently. So yeah, no, I think that if there's a group of students out there that's interested in engaging nonprofits in Lawrence, like definitely contact the CCO. We would love more collaboration, and it just increases our volunteer engagement and would, I don't know, further connect KU students to Lawrence, which is the ultimate goal. So yeah.
So I guess I think like for me, something that could like actually help a little bit is like before Hawk Week, if there was a list of those and like a short description maybe, because like during Hawk Week when I see like an engineer come up, like that doesn't pertain to my organization, but then maybe if I could point out which organizations they could go to like, I don't know, something that they might be interested in, that might help a little bit, whereas like I just send them off and they're like, oh, that's not me. That might be a little bit, yeah, discouraging for them.
I think it would be interesting, and this is just an idea, and I don't know if like Silk would necessarily have the resources to do this at the moment. I don't know what it looks like, but I think since all of these organizations are there on Rock Chop Central, and all of them have like a listed like point of contact, like an email, it would be interesting if maybe at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of semester, so you get time for organizations to start in the fall, if there was some sort of event hosted by Silk that invited all of these leaders in these organizations to come and meet up, I would think more of an event that focuses on allowing these leaders to be able to talk a lot with each other, so kind of maybe a social setting, maybe a dinner event, and it doesn't even have to be something that, you know, Silk is like funding all the food. It could be even like a kind of an entry fee to like pay for the dinner. But I think that probably a lot of leaders of these organizations would be interested in doing that and being able to meet these other organizations face to face. I think that could be really cool. I know, because again, I'm a person that really likes face to face. I don't like, you know, just kind of, you know, emailing 79 service organizations and trying to manage conversations with them is difficult.
Yeah.
So, but I think there could be a cool opportunity for like trying to create an event that is specifically meant to help build connections between these organizations by giving them kind of a fairly unstructured time to just talk to each other and see what, you know, everyone's passionate about and what everyone's working on.
And I think,
go
ahead.
And being able to discuss like if there are problems in the organization in terms of retention or recruiting, because if there's 79 of them, there's bound to be another organization who may be struggling with something similar. But also it's nice to have, I feel like, cheerleaders that are encouraging you to keep doing the work, because sometimes service is a lot on the soul, because you're putting a lot of time and energy into communities and into people, but it's nice to have that support group too. So I think that could be really helpful.
I was going to say, from our end, this might be something that even you could involve like fraternity and sorority leaders in, because we do have a lot of members who they might not be taking on executive positions within our chapters, but they want to get involved on campus and they want to be doing things. So if the leaders of our organizations know what's out there, know what's available, and have had contact with those individuals, then it will be easier for us to point our members in the right direction. Because I'll be honest, I had no idea we had that many service organizations.
I could be wrong. I mean, maybe I remember this
You know.
incorrectly. So. It's also like, so a lot would double up as well. So like, so it'd be like community service, and then it also falls under like, can't think of like marketing or like business something. They have different cost points.
Right.
Yeah, but I definitely love that idea, like a president's party or something, where you invite the president of like every organization to come and like do kind of like a cocktail hour thing, mingle, meet other people, and then you can give them a list of like, as you were saying, like all the names and like kind of so they have that support and they can email each other and open up that connection. Because I really do think that's one of the biggest problems is we have so many great leaders on campus, but we don't know what they're doing and we don't know how to contact them because you don't think to go to Rock Chalk Central and look up, because you don't know what the organization's even called, right? Or that they exist in the first place. So I think if you have that initial contact in the beginning of the year, it would be really helpful. So.
I think it would just like organically happen. Like,
Yeah.
if you get a lot of people who are passionate about their organizations in the same room, they're gonna want to talk about it with everyone there, and
Right.
then just like ideas start flowing, and then
For
yeah,
sure.
relationships are built. So that's a really cool idea.
Cool. Anybody have anything else? Well, okay, so that's officially the end of it. You can stay and eat and get more food. I think we have this room until 7, so I know a lot of you didn't eat because of live streams, but you can eat now. Michael turned off the
I'll
live
shut it
stream,
off,
so
yeah.
it's officially over. You can say whatever you were thinking, but didn't want to say